Hello, everyone, and happy April 1st. Happy first day of April, which is wild and crazy that we're here. And I'm here. My name is Renee Moelders. I'm a partner with Convergence Coaching. I'm here with my partner, Jennifer Wilson. Tamara Lorzell is not available today, so she's put us in charge on April Fools, Jen. So hopefully we can manage ourselves appropriately. And actually, that's kind of a perfect lead into what we wanted to talk about because we're going to talk about professional image. We're going to talk about professionalism and really through the lens of some little things, small habits, small behaviors that get in the way of us being seen as professional or experienced as professional. And sometimes we get feedback review. People might say, I'd like for you to work on your professional image. And so these are some of the little things that we can adjust or change that can have a big impact. That's where we thought we would go. And Jen, I thought I might start with, maybe my pet peeve, which is some of the physical behaviors that we have. So for instance, playing with our hair a lot or playing with our nails and our cuticles, biting our cuticles. So some of those like physical habits that people have, maybe scratching, itching ourselves in public. So anyway, that's where I thought I would start as, which is kind of an awkward place.
No, that's why I started laughing. I was like, wow, Renee, you went hard, fast.
Just go right in
Yeah,
there.
you went way in, way deep. So yes, I do think that we don't pay enough attention to what we're doing when we're talking to each other. And especially if we work with each other all the time, I think, or are familiar with one another in a firm setting or in a client setting or something like that, we stop paying attention to sort of the little physicality things that make us feel, professional, make us heard optimally. And, playing with hair is a really interesting one. I, I think it's predominantly female. Although on video, it's really interesting because if you see your image, then you get on the call or whatever it is, and you start talking and you're like, oh, that's not, I don't know about that. And you start messing around with your hair while you're talking to somebody. Or there are some people that have more of a habit. It wouldn't matter if video was present. They don't have to have a reflection or a mirror. They are like commonly pulling their hair back and putting it up in a pony and, twisting it around and clipping it. And while they're talking, and they just don't realize that while they're doing that, the listener is kind of wandering a little bit off with their habit, with the thing they're doing, and having possibly a mental conversation like, are they doing that? Or do they realize that that's distracting? Or all of a sudden they're not listening very well. So, and we all have verbal habits. We all have little physical habits that we pick up. And, like my dad, who I love dearly, my brothers will imitate my dad, and we know who they're being because he wears suspenders and they'll grab this and talk. We know he doesn't have to say, I'm imitating dad. We know the second he grabs his suspenders, figuratively, that because my dad will frequently stand there and talk to you holding onto his suspenders. If not, he'll put his hands in his pockets and jingle whatever is in there. And those are things that we love them about my dad. So there's nothing irritating about them. But in business, if he was giving a presentation or something, it might be distracting. It could cause the audience not to hear as much while they were kind of noticing that. I'll give an example of something that I have to watch when presenting, and I have a number of things, but one of them is give me a marker. It's almost like a mean thing to do. If I have to write on a board somewhere around us, and then in between I turn around and face you with my marker, if you guys talk for too long, my marker lid might come off and go back on. I might accidentally write on myself. Like all of a sudden, that marker and I are up to stuff. And so I'm conscious of that, and I try to set it down if I know I'm not going to be using it for a while, so that my marker doesn't distract people. And especially if I draw on myself. I've had audience members mention, You got a little ink on yourself there, in the past. And so that's when I first noticed, wow, what am I doing with that marker? So just little things. And Renee and I thought we'd dedicate this whole session to the little things because most of us don't realize we're doing them. And so it's just something to pay attention to and ask yourself, do I do it? You could ask other people afterwards. Maybe something in this conversation will really make you wonder. And then you could ask, hey, watch for this. I wonder if I do it. So you mentioned another tough one, and I'm going to jump in here and say it. And that's chewing nails or chewing cuticles or anything like hand in mouth. And in business, I think, at least in the US, I'm going to call that a no-no, especially post-pandemic. Most people are like concerned about the spread of germs. So they definitely don't want your hands that might be touching a shared marker or a shared clicker or something, they shook your hands right before you start talking, and then they see you put your hands in your mouth or anything like that. That is definitely a flare for people. And even if they're not germ focused, they may be like, oh, chewing nails or chewing skin, yikes. And so that's definitely one to look out and stamp out.
Well, and I don't think, Jen, it's only in the in-person experience, because it's also awkward to watch someone on video do something like that. Also, like, fingers in your ears, or, and I mean, we, like our earlobe itches, so we do this, but like lots of like cleaning out our ears, or, these are things, right, that we could just forget. Yeah, we could forget.
You talked about scratching.
Not paying attention to what we're doing. I also think there's nervousness involved, and that's the cap on and off the marker. That's the like wanting to have something to do with your hands. And whenever we're speaking, like oftentimes I will have the clicker in my hand because it gives me something to do, or I'll have a cup of hot tea or a glass of water in my hand because it gets rid of that urge to stick my hands in my pockets or to wiggle my hands around or do other things because I'm holding my cup, my nice warm cup, So I don't know. Sometimes when I'm on a video call, I'll pull out my squeeze ball, and I can't find it right now, but I will hold that in my hands and move, squeeze the ball to get out some of that energy and that desire to do something else, to fidget. I think those are fidgeting things that we do, the playing with the hair, or the constant like combing it back, which is male or female, by the way. I see men do it sometimes too. Men with more hair will kind of comb their hair back on the regular. And you're right. I can't hear them at some point because I'm like, I almost start counting, like how many times are we going to comb the hair? Which is, it's silly, but it just, that's the little voice. It notices those things. And so we probably have to practice some stillness. Figure out a way that we can have more stillness, because that's another one, by the way, is like twitching, fidgeting, the leg, like bouncing on the floor, or the pen tapping on the table. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's distracting to other people around us, all that movement. And I don't think of myself as a super fidgety person, but I know I have lower energy than others. Some people are super, like they're revving really high. And so they're going to have to figure out, where does that energy go? If not into the tapping and the fidgeting that becomes distracting for others.
Yes, all of those little things. And you're right. They're habits that are noticeable on video or in person. And so you can't say, well, in video, I can really loosen that stuff up. I guess your squeeze ball below camera and silent is okay, but if it were like the whole time.
Yeah, that might be distracting.
Well, I mean, it would be distracting. And so that's what there is to pay attention to. Now, I have a bunch of them myself. I'm a massive head nodder. I can't help nodding. I am an encourager. I love hearing what people have to say, and I'm like, want to laugh and smile and nod, and I have to be careful that I'm not too animated, in the process. And when I stand here, I don't want to stand perfectly still with my feet cemented to the ground, but I'm in a light box, so I have to stay within the camera range. But that doesn't mean that I won't shift from foot to foot. I will, and I have to watch sometimes and say, is that distracting? Am I messing up people getting the message? And so we're not trying to have you be like perfectly still and no facial expressions, no movement. We want you to be yourself. We just want every one of us to pay a little bit of attention to these little things that creep in that start to distract from our message. And the reason for that is because we want you to be the most inspiring, influential, impactful leader you could be. And leaders lead by communicating. And when there's strange little distractions in the communication, then it takes away from the power of your message, takes away from the power of people's listening. And so I'm going to say a couple more physical things, Renee, and then I think we should go to a few verbal.
I'm thinking some, yeah. But finish with the physical, yes.
Well, I wanted to say a couple more physical ideas. And one of them is the idea that, when I'm nervous, if we're together and I have something important to say, I might actually literally step back from you or lean back from you and not lean forward into you. Or if you were upset, I might lean away unconsciously, not realizing that what I'm doing is physically kind of trying to remove myself from the risk or the fear or whatever it is, instead of leaning forward and sharing my idea, or leaning forward to listen to you, even though you're upset or even though you're disappointed or angry, not leaning away. So that's something else just to pay attention to. And then there's a whole host of stuff that Renee used the phrase professional image that make a difference on video. And they make a difference in person too, but on video, like I was off work Friday and attended a meeting of a lot of people that were important. And the way it got scheduled, it was right in the middle of a run. And I finished my run and went to the call in a hat. And I want you to know, I don't think that's a good idea to go to any video call for work in a hat. And it was fun because, it wasn't fun. I didn't like being in the hat, but it was just how it worked out. And they knew that they had scheduled it. And I was off and all of that. And so I was trying to make it work, but it's still, we get on the call and they're like, I don't think Jen's here. And somebody goes, I think that's her. She's in a hat. Like I was incognito. They were like, I think that's her. My name was on the box, but still they were like, this just really doesn't look like her. But it was me, in a running hat, sort of sweaty. And it was what it was. And so that should be exceptional, probably not the norm, unless, you're all doing it and you've all agreed you were having a call and it's super casual. But that wasn't a agreed upon super casual call. And some of those people looked like they could stand up and present in front of a room of 100, and there I was in my hat. So, and a hat is hard to see your face. So just a hat in general in video, probably not a great idea. And then a sweater is a better idea, or a jacket. And I don't mean suit coat, but some sort of lightweight jacket versus a hoodie. If you're trying to present ideas to people. Now, if you and I are just having a check-in call, I don't care if you have a hoodie on, and you shouldn't care if I have one on either. But if we want to project and get an important message across to an important audience, we ought to think a little bit about the physicality here coming across and we call it looking tailored or crisp or professional. Like to ask yourself, does this feel crisp and professional? Am I about to project a professional, tailored image? And if not, and the audience really sort of calls for that, or the subject does, or what I want to get accomplished does, then we might need to make some adjustments. And they're not very big. We don't have to completely revise, but we might change our coat before we start, or swap out and not have the hat on, or choose not to have, the clip ponytail or whatever for this discussion with this group. And just think a little bit about what am I projecting?
Yeah. Well, and Jen, I mean, you said this, but I want to reiterate that there are calls where it's not a big deal, where you don't have to be dressed up. But I think if you're going to a lunch and learn and you're the one who's going to be talking to people and you want them to hear your ideas, if you're attending a partner call or a partner manager call, and that you're going to think more carefully about putting yourself together, getting ready for it. And there are times when we can't, and maybe we just say, hey folks, I'm running in from XYZ, and this is how I am today. But yes, I hear you that should probably be the exception. I definitely wouldn't. And the reason I wanted to say that, Jen, is because some of the people on the line are presenting. They might hear us as like, well, these are presentation tips, but not really for me. But I mean, we present when we are speaking in a meeting, when we are sharing our ideas internally with our team about which software program we're going to pick, or the results of our research, or this new technical pronouncement that came out and that we want people, or like a new process that we want people to follow. We definitely want them to hear us. And if they're distracted by the hat and wondering what was I doing right before I came to this call, instead of listening, we are probably missing the mark there.
Yeah. And that's it, because all listeners need to know we're an anytime, anywhere work organization. We love Max Flex. We are major proponents. We've been proponents of dress for your day. We are fine with jeans and t-shirts and tennies and all those things at the appropriate time. But I'm just talking about this little snapshot we sometimes get on video. And like I come to my performance appraisal, I probably want to bring it one notch up for that meeting.
Yeah.
Like, and day to day in, day out, I don't have to worry about that. So it's just more of an intentionality kind of a thing that I was talking about.
That totally makes sense. Well, and Jen, I think what I would also like for us to talk about are some of the language habits that get in the way. And one that I've been working on myself, I would say, over the last year, and thinking about and paying attention to when it comes out of my mouth is I'm sorry, or apologizing. And there definitely are times when we need to apologize, when it's time, when we've made a mistake, or we've neglected to do something and we need to say, hey, listen, I really dropped the ball there. Sure. But, it's interesting to me watching people responding to emails, and it's been 26 hours since I sent it. And they say, I'm so sorry it took me so long to respond. And I think to myself, 26 hours, isn't that a little bit crazy that that's something that you say, I'm sorry for? So I feel like we can overuse I'm sorry, and it puts us always on the back foot. It makes us look like we're always wrong, or we're always making mistakes, or there might even be like a weakness aspect there, like not confident maybe is another way to say it, lacking confidence. So that's one that I would like for some of our listeners to pay attention to. When are you saying I'm sorry? And where I notice it is in taking up space, like at the grocery store and going down the aisle. And I committed to stop saying I'm sorry there, because I'm not sorry I'm walking down the aisle and that sometimes I'm in someone else's way. I'm shopping too. So it's more like, excuse me, or let me get out of your way, or, pardon me, but not I'm sorry. So anyway, I don't know what you think about that one, Jen, and maybe that spawned some other language habits that are unempowering or take away from our professionalism.
Yes, I think I'm sorry is a habit, and people get it and then they use it a lot. I also think when you study the differences between genders, women tend to use I'm sorry more frequently. One thing that I'm gonna take your I'm sorry and glue it to another traditionally female bad verbal habit, but some men do it too, but it's traditionally female or feminine, is we say a bunch of unempowering stuff before we share our idea. So one of those can be, I'm sorry, but I'd like to get a word in here, or I'm sorry, but I have a thought on this. And we see people use I'm sorry as a form of interruption, which isn't interrupting because we're having a dialogue as a group. So nobody has to say I'm sorry because they have a thought on this, because we're wanting to hear everyone's thoughts. So that, or we hear those unempowering, what I'll call preambles. I don't know what you guys will think of this. You'll probably think it's a bad idea, but I was thinking, and we see that a lot, where people will like negate the quality of what is about to follow. I'm not really sure I have the right answer here, but what if we, instead of just deleting that, like if we were writing scripts, we would just delete those, scratch that. We don't have time on the tape for that. Don't put that in there. It didn't add value. So that's just an interesting thing that not all of us realize we do. But adding those, I'm going to call them hedge words or something. There's something that we're doing there that unempowers what follows. And so just look at that one. That's a verbal habit. Another one that I thought might be a flash in the pan, but it's not. It is not going away. I had hoped it would go away, is the word actually. And if it isn't actually, some people got rid of actually and they changed it to literally. And they literally use it actually every 5 minutes, actually overused like crazy. I mean, literally. Those two words will show up. Now, they won't use them together like I just did. That was ridiculous. Nobody could do that because it's just too many syllables in your mouth and you would be like, I got to clean that up. That's taking too long. But some people have picked that up, and one of those words shows up in their verbal sentences. Not really, I don't notice it in writing, but I notice it verbally. And it's an emphasis. I think it's an emphasis. We're trying to place an emphasis on what we're talking about. But it ends up becoming the word we start paying attention to as the listener.
Distracting, totally distracting. Yes.
So whatever we were trying to emphasize is gone.
Right. Well, and I find myself as the listener counting how many, I'm a numbers person. So, and maybe that's also from Toastmasters, because in Toastmasters, they count your filler words. So, and those are filler words, Jen. I mean, that's what it is, right? So, yes.
Yes.
Totally. Sure. I actually literally agree with you on that.
And then I have one more that I can't let us finish without, and that's to be honest. So I think we should all delete that bad boy. Never use it again. I want you to be honest with me all the time. When you say to be honest, and if you say to be honest a lot, I start to wonder if I need a to be honest in front of what you said to trust that it was your real feelings.
Well, and what about in my opinion? Does that fall in the same category? Because I do sometimes coach my TOP folks to pull that out. Your opinions, every time you open your mouth, it's your opinion. You don't have to say to me, in my opinion.
And I think that depends. I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly that most of the time we don't need that kind of a hedge. Okay. But I would say that there are times when I might say, I'm perceiving that, or it's hitting me that right now what's happening here is we're being pretty upset and emotions are getting elevated, and I'm hoping we can bring it down a notch. I'm feeling that, or, I'm perceiving, or in my opinion, guys, we've gotten way off track here. It helps from being too imperialistic, if I'm going to say, especially if I'm not the facilitator, for me to say, hey guys, we've gotten way off track here, might be presumptive. So I might say, in my opinion, it's feeling like we've gotten way off track, or something like that. So I think there are times when you can use it, but again, I'd rather accidentally underuse these things or never use these things than overuse them, because they just take away. We see so many bright leaders, so many smart people especially younger people. Maybe it's as we are trying to build our confidence in our leadership, unempower or derail the power of our thoughts and ideas with these little things.
Yeah, little things that can have a big impact. And by the way, little things that are pretty easy to resolve. Habits are hard to break. So you will have to, first of all, notice it, find it, see it, and then set a goal, have it in your mind that that's something you're going to work on and pay attention to it. It's interesting how once it's on your frame, it comes across your brain, that then you are likely going to notice it and then can replace it, figure out something else to say or do or to leave it out entirely. So we hope this was helpful to you, this discussion about professional image. We hope you heard something that you yourself could use, or maybe there are others in your life, people that you're coaching, who you could share this with and give them some insights that they don't have right now about some things they could do to be heard more professionally and to have their thoughts and ideas come across better by eliminating some of these habits. So thanks so much for being with us today, everyone. April 1st, April Fools. Have a great rest of your day. And we will see you on the next HR Huddle next week. Thanks, everyone.